Well, thanks everybody for coming today. It's lovely to have you all here on a Sunday. Particular welcome to students in Year 11 and 12 who might be considering architecture as a career. I'd love to talk to you about that. So today we're going to talk about design with purpose and how we at MGS design with purpose. My name is Elliet Spring. I'm a director at MGS Architects. So hopefully you know a bit about us from this exhibition.
And I'm Catherine Ranger, director at MGS.
Before we begin, we'd like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of Naarm, the Boon Wurrung and Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people of the Kulin Nation. We recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture and pay our respects to their elders past, present and extend this respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So today we want to give you a bit of a taste of the why of architecture, why we do what we do. And I suppose more importantly than that, once we've established the why, how we go about designing what we do so that it delivers design with purpose. It's a small group. We'd love it to be a conversation. If there's something comes up you'd like to question or chat about, we'd love that. So please do. You're quite far back, but if you want to come forward, that's welcome too. So what is purpose? Catherine and I stumbled across this statement or this definition of purpose on the UC Berkeley site, and it resonated with us. So to psychologists, purpose is an abiding intention to achieve a long-term goal that is both personally meaningful and makes a positive mark on the world. It seems like most architects have a strong sense of purpose. And in fact, Catherine and I did a bit of digging around on the websites of some of the largest architecture firms in Australia and around the world. And you may need to come closer to see this one. And gathered a collection of purpose statements. So I ask you to just have a read if you can. So if you can read it, hopefully you're picking up on a bit of a theme here. You'll see that architects broadly say that they're looking for a better planet, a better world, a better future. They want to improve people's lives. They want to positively impact tomorrow. They want to change the world. They want an inclusive future, a sustainable future. They want to connect people. These are all fabulous purposes, obviously. But of course, there's a sense of ubiquity to it. Obviously, this is what everybody wants to do. So Catherine and I went to our old friend ChatGPT and asked it to prepare a purpose statement for a generic architecture firm. So it gave us, insert your firm's name here, our purpose is to create inspired spaces that enrich lives and elevate communities. Through innovative design, thoughtful collaboration, and a commitment to sustainability, we strive to shape environments that seamlessly blend aesthetics with functionality. Our firm is dedicated to fostering creativity, embracing diversity, and delivering exceptional architectural solutions that stand as a testament to our unwavering passion for shaping a better world. Thought it's probably cheaper to go to ChatGPT than a PR firm for that one. So at the same time, it seems that once we approach our social media for architectural inspiration, it's unsurprising that there's a cascade of generic responses. So here we've captured some images from Pinterest, which is a popular image searching website, which you are probably familiar with. So this first one here, you'll see we've typed in modern house. So what do you see? Boxes, glass, some nice pale fabrics. So we typed in modern beach house. What do you see? Nice boxes, pale fabrics, bit of textured stone and some palm trees. Type in modern house America. There's a bit of a dark grey emerging in the American modern house. And then modern house South Korea. It's a bit of nighttime in South Korea. So it has us pondering, are we trapped in the algorithm? Pinterest and Instagram are biased towards a certain sensibility in the same way that ChatGPT can predict the architect's purpose statement. So it's clear most architects want their architecture to contribute to a better world. And of course, MGS is no different. And in fact, we've based our identity on improving the lives of the people that we work with and society more broadly for nearly 40 years now. And obviously, well, hopefully, you've had some time to explore some of our work in the exhibition.
We work with clients who share our vision for an equitable and sustainable planet and don't pursue projects that conflict with this view.
So this is a project, McIntyre Drive in Altona, from some years ago, which we think typifies the kind of work we like to do. So given our conscientiousness and commitment to a better world is hardly unique, what makes our work, and indeed all architects' work, different? How do we address uncritical uniformity? At MGS, we work across several or many complementary purposes at the same time. Sometimes they even contradict one another. And we've been calling this layering our purposes. So as we said before, like all good architects, being a good global citizen is central to our thinking. But in addition to this, we're completely committed to supporting the uniqueness of each of our clients and the unique aspects and qualities of their site. And then on top of this, we want to break out of the algorithm. We want to question conceptions. We want to question conventions. We want to ask people to pause. We want them to question the environment that they're within. And we want to evoke thought. But of course, that's not a linear process. It's a bit of a feedback loop where we work within one of the purposes, jump into another, and keep repeating and repeating the process. It's a really messy process often, and a purpose can affect the other. Sometimes it feels like it's 2 steps forwards, 3 steps back, another step forward, a step sideways. And often the end product isn't exactly what we'd imagined, and that's okay. It can be difficult to get used to that. But for that reason, it's really important to stay attuned to the purpose, to the layers of purpose established from the very beginning. Changes in the design then become palatable and even welcome. But of course, encompassing all of these layers of thinking is the reality of the situation of design. How much money does the client have? How much will it cost to build the building on that particular site? How much time do we have to design it and to build it? How big will the structure need to be? How do we align with the building code? And what about planning regulations and heritage constraints? So this is the uncomfortable confluence of ambition and reality. But sometimes in this tension, in this the constraint is where creativity can thrive. And then finally, of course, we really love enjoying work. You know, we're architects daily. We spend probably more time with each other than with anybody else. So we seek out collaboration with each other, with our clients and with our consultants. And mostly, I suppose, we love engaging meaningfully with our colleagues. And the process can sometimes be tense. It's not always sort of happy. So we haven't said a happy process, but we enjoy this tension. Our aligned sense of purpose keeps us working together towards a shared goal. So we thought it would be useful today to talk about this process, designing with purpose, through the lens of a real life project. So we're going to look at what we've done at Xavier College. It's a relatively complex project as far as projects go. It's undertaken over a long period. And even though the essence of the brief is quite simple, it's quite, we think it will give you a good sense of that feedback loop. So its key idea was to support 500 additional students in year 7 and 8 on the historic campus in Kew. So you may or may not be familiar with it, but it's expanse of grass, a historic core, and the city beyond in this image.
So the big question we needed to ask was, how do we avoid uncritical uniformity? How do we question with purpose to inform a design? Through a non-linear process, through a design agglomerate. We think of design as a series of interwoven decisions which branch out, impact, and bounce off others. In the following slides, we will explore the thinking and the design process undertaken on this new building at Xavier. We will take you through elements of the design and the process that agglomerate to become the final design, the completed building. In this way, the narrative evolves and resolves through the design and construction process. It continues upon completion as occupants, and in this case students and teachers, move in, and they can use and adapt spaces to their needs. Every decision is intentional, driven by a clear purpose, and juggles wide-reaching project needs. The icons that you'll notice on the following pages are a reminder of these overarching purposes.
The first one on the left is the conscientiousness, so that desire to improve the world. The middle one is about the magic or the creativity, the desire to evoke thought. And the final one is about the unique identity of the place and the client. We thought about putting the constraints of the site and budget as another one, but we had to highlight that in every single slide. And so that's just the way of design. So at Xavier, our work commenced with a master plan. Some of you may not be familiar with a master plan, but this was really a project through which we sought to locate the new 7 and 8 building for those 500 young students in the right place on the campus in a way that would respect the existing constraints and buildings on the site, but also mean that the school could design and build other projects in the future in the right location. Central to the process of a master plan is deep engagement. So a photograph here of working with some of the staff at the school. And the aim of this engagement is to make sure we completely understand the identity and the approaches of the client, but also understand what's working on the site, what's not working on the site. And at the same time, we walk the site ourselves, become familiar with the place, just listen and watch and draw and photograph and start to bring together our own thoughts on the unique identity of the client and, in this case, their approach to teaching and learning. The next slide shows a series of strategies that we worked with the client to establish. I won't go through it in too much detail, but this is, and you can see the little icon there, this is at the same time dealing with the big picture of how to improve the world, inclusivity, connection, sustainability, and then the fingerprint is highlighted there too. How do we make sure this is completely unique to this school? So we looked at a clear spine of connecting the different buildings on the campus along the north with the chapel in the centre. We looked at their Jesuit identity. We wanted to respond appropriately to the context and their neighbours. And importantly, we wanted to preserve the heritage of the site, views to the campus and from the campus. And this is just a selection of many, many strategies that we developed. This is the image of the final master plan. And right in the centre here is the 7 and 8 building, which was really the cornerstone of the master plan. So it occupies a central spot, I guess the keystone of the plan on the Xavier spine. And this is a little sketch showing a preliminary idea for that building.
Manresa, the pilot project, which wasn't called the pilot project at the time, but now we see it in that light. It was the renovation of a disused basement in an existing building on site. The intent was to provide classrooms for Year 7 students while the new building was being constructed. Year 7s and 8s are new to the senior campus, so they had to find room to house them in the meantime. Constraints inherent are obviously the ceiling height, access to light, and ventilation, and also the existing structural elements. Glazed classroom pods expressed in mass timber hang from the concrete ceiling above. There's no need for extra columns. So this was seen as a critical part of the design, how to keep the ground floor as open as possible for future flexibility. The engineering is revealed as a learning opportunity for students and also dictate a unique aesthetic for this project, whether it's exposed structure, exposed services, all the nuts and bolts. The spaces and systems have been carefully designed to invite natural light in and ventilation to this hardworking subterranean facility. Here's a detail of the mass timber connections, which are a thing of beauty.
And just a last comment on the Manresa project. If you'd been following the icons, all three were highlighted in that one because it was a short, sharp process. So we had to work simultaneously across all three. So looking back at the master plan sketch, we were invited to compete in a design competition for the new 7 and 8 building. As Catherine said, the school had previously not had students in year 7 and 8 on this campus. So it was quite a big undertaking to have a new building to support the needs of 500 students. So this image is to give you a sense of that site, which is a little hard to understand in a plan and in a sketch. You can see the topography is quite extreme and it's adjacent to the very famous chapel. So it's a very sensitive location. A competition is an interesting process because as part of our design thinking, you need to know a client really, really well. We need to know who they are. We need to understand their identity, their ambitions, and how we can embody this in design. So we brought a lot of our thoughts from the master plan into this design approach. This is a mud map that brings together all of the things, and probably not all of them, but most of the things that we started to understand from the client. So thinking about the site and the master plan, we knew a lot about the ambitions of the school. Boys in year 7 and 8, it's a very particular time in a student's life when they're transitioning from primary school, from grade 6 into year 7. There's a whole new, you have to reorient yourself as you move through those stages. Equally, a child in year 7 is quite different from a child year 8. We had to accommodate all of those needs. We wanted to reflect the school's Ignatian pedagogy, and pedagogy is the way they teach, and their Jesuit spirituality, so that's part of their Catholic identity. We wanted to infuse the joy of Cosca Hall. The school was closing a very beloved campus in Brighton called Cosca Hall, and we wanted to try and take some of the fantastic elements of that campus and insert them into this design. And last but not least here, we've got building as a learning tool. The idea that the building could be the third teacher, as Catherine was showing at Manresa, we'd explored those ideas there. And again, you can see with the little icons there, all three purposes. We distilled these purposes, the mud map, into this diagram of ambitions. So the master plan was the foundation of our thinking. Then it was, we brought the poetry of the Jesuit identity, Cosca spirit, the needs of 7 and 8 students as key concepts, then the spatial requirements, which is how big the spaces needed to be, how they should relate to one another. And then finally, the result was a flexible, resilient, robust building as a learning tool. We worked closely with pedagogical experts and used some of our knowledge of teaching and learning in this project. So we worked with New Learning Environments, Anna and Emma, and they brought this diagram, which if you are interested in school designs, you probably have come across. It's a Fisher and Dovey diagram from the University of Melbourne. And it looks at traditional classroom layouts, cellular and separate, and then very, forward-thinking or progressive thoughts on teaching, which is where there are barely any walls at all. We worked with the client and sat somewhere between number C and D, which is where there's a lot of flexibility so that the teachers could adapt the spaces to reflect their needs. And this plan is probably a little difficult to see from back there, but the key idea was that there were 5 classrooms around a central inhabited informal learning space. So these 5 classrooms each had 25 students maximum within them, and that number obviously is 125, and we looked a lot at Dunbar's number theorem, which is about the maximum number of relationships that somebody can comfortably maintain. So we have 2 different neighbourhoods on this floor here, year 7 on the left and year 8 on the right, and then looked to stack them vertically. And this is not a typical way that year 7 and 8 buildings are arranged, but we thought that it would allow the students to cross-pollinate and come together in different ways through the course of their day. We use mass timber as our material, and there's, I suppose, a relationship between the regularity of this plan and the decision to work with mass timber. And again, that's the feedback loop. We worked with a plan. We worked then in the mass timber and kept coming back to the plan to make sure that it would both align with the structural requirements of the timber, but also work really well as a teaching and learning space. Timber, of course, has many benefits. It's speed, it's prefabricated, so it can be erected really quickly. So that comes back to, I guess, the compliance piece. It's very sustainable. It's got low embodied energy, but of course, alongside this sustainability, it has tremendous impacts on well-being. So we're interested in an idea of salutogenic design, which is well-being through architecture and spatial spaces. And so that timber is known to improve the well-being of students and also their educational outcomes. And the other thing that's fabulous about timber is the fact that we could express so much of it so that it was a learning tool. Again, the building as teacher. Equally, we felt that while the building should be a teacher, the building process should be a teacher. So it was fantastic to work with the school to show them how the building would come together in terms of, we worked with them in virtual reality. So this was Father Chris Middleton on the site, exploring the building in 3D. And equally, we brought the students in through the process, and Catherine will talk about that a little more. The landscapes are absolutely integral to the building, woven through, around, between, and then the spaces inside flow outside. We worked closely with open work on the landscape. We won't talk about it too much today because there's a whole other hour in that presentation, but it relates back to our ideas of salutogenic design and well-being. So it's really important for schools to have a great relationship with natural spaces.
The inhabited learning street. This was probably the largest organising concept for the building. As well as running the length of the building, we envisaged this learning street as extending upwards and outwards at key points, connecting the entries at the bottom of the hill, top of the hill and mid-hill. We saw an opportunity for this space to support different types of learning by providing different spatial experiences, hard-wearing, robust spaces for groups to meet, and quiet spaces for individuals and small groups to retreat. We began shaping spaces that would allow students to escape the busy social street but still be a part of the life of the building. The learning street culminates at its western end in a sitting stair where students can come together for informal catch-ups or small performances and speeches can be held in an amphitheatre-like environment. So you can see that down at the bottom of that image, with the classroom neighbourhoods off to the right. This is a render of the proposal, followed by where it sits now, under construction. Ancient basalt plains. We live on basalt plains in Melbourne, and it's a material that's literally the foundation of many important buildings across the Xavier campus and throughout Melbourne. It was a starting point in delving into the architectural tectonic of the project, an expression of basalt columns bedded to the ground. This is a diagram of the learning street with the concept of basalt columns rising up from the ground and carved out for seating, for quiet retreat and study. We didn't use bluestone as the main cladding. It appears on the ground plane, but instead we used brick, glorious brick. And the brick we chose has, you'll see in a later photo, some qualities of bluestone. And for brick, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So we thought we could form these sculptural elements out of brick and they would have that mass that we were hoping to achieve. MGS approaches materials with curiosity, and we like to explore the possibilities of each material, both technically and aesthetically. We wanted to select a material that's equally an external material and can work internally as well, suited to both. a material that can be subdued but also expressive. Brick can be serious and it can be playful. It's malleable and can be crafted to create thresholds, ledges and nooks. It can be scaled to suit important civic buildings, innovative education buildings, and in these imbue a sense of home and the familiar. This is a construction photo of the brick on site. Another part of this project, or second part, is a large underground, under-oval car park. The main idea being all the cars will be taken off campus to create a completely pedestrian-free campus with the prized chapel oval on top. So for this building, it needed to be a bit quieter than the Year 7 building. So we used a similar language, similar forms, but in a more pared back way. So the only really expressive part is at the entry, and then as you go around the oval, it becomes more rhythmic and pared back. But for the most part, the structure is hidden in the topography. Stitched spaces, celebration of threshold. The learning street, the spine that organises the building, and the space where different programs are attached to, was an architectural opportunity for a bit of texture. And we've been calling these the connective tissue, spaces that can subtly prepare you for a new space or new activity. In the case of the learning street, we did this often through lowering a ceiling or compressing a space. Areas of inhabitation, brick seating, tables, art, display boxes and windows punctuate the journey along the high, airy volume of the learning street. This is a construction photo of the threshold into the resources space and the expansive height above and the sitting stair. Throughout the building, there are moments to retreat for solitude and areas for groups to gather and be rambunctious. Neighbourhood stairs pop out. You'll see on the south facade, the two red boxes are the neighbourhood stairs which puncture the facade and offer an opportunity for students to look directly to the chapel or look out over the oval while hovering above the sloped landscape. So the idea of offering different perspectives as you travel through the building was important. Artful display. This photo was taken from the original Cosca campus, and one thing that struck us was the care in which the art was mounted, displayed, and it was throughout the whole school. It was really beautiful. And that was one thing that, I guess, initiated our idea of the learning street. How could it be more than just a street? So we've got the seating, tables, but the other intention is also as a gallery for student work, painting, drawing, sculptures, ceramics, shown alongside the school's collection of beautiful art. And alongside that, digital displays which will have curated student work constantly shown. Here's an example of one of the display cabinets. Friendly competition. So Xavier ran a student competition to design a pattern for fabric to upholster some chairs throughout the project, which was a wonderful process, and students from every year contributed. This was the winning design, so that will be finding its way to the chairs in a lot of the meeting rooms and staff areas. You may notice in this space there tends to be a focus on carpet in a lot of our projects. The floor surface is a constant and can dramatically alter the nature of a space and how you experience it, generally in a way that goes unnoticed. At Xavier, the carpet is a shifting gradient of colours. This is a diagram of one of the floor plans with the classrooms around the edges. It unifies the classrooms and breakout areas, making them feel larger and part of the same space. And meanwhile, the smaller patches of colour help focus attention and create certain zones. Another layer of this design is that the carpet pattern and the way we approach the interiors was of a complementary scale to the building itself. Often interior design can come later and not necessarily coalesce with the architecture itself, but something we like to do is try and do it together from the very start. And the upholstery also kind of merges out of the colours of the carpet. Programmatic and topographic anchors. So we've talked about the learning street and the classrooms and neighbourhoods behind that. And on either end of the building, there are anchors, which are both different in program. So one is a chapel at the base of the hill, and the other is the resource centre or library at the top of the hill. And they're both anchored into the topography. This is an image of the chapel, which is in dialogue with the chapel on top of the hill. It's a smaller space. It's more casual in nature and takes its cues from the shape of the Cosca Chapel, which you'll see in a moment. These two spaces, the chapel and the resources centre, use a similar language, these V-shaped columns. The chapel is arrayed in a circle, whereas the resource centre is a cutout. And the idea is that between each of these V columns, you can sit, you can reflect. In the chapel, you can focus inward, or you can swing your legs around and focus outward, watch the oval. So these were a slightly more formal but playful expression that as distinct from the more organic brick shapes. Translating Cosca. I'll talk about two elements here. One is a very special oak tree that's been there for I'm not sure how long, but important to all past students. So the school took an acorn and propagated it, and it's a little baby at the moment, but it's going to be planted here in the middle of this reflective courtyard. So that's a reference and something special to connect with the beloved campus. And the chapel at Cosca, you might see the similarities, the circular form, the faceted shape, and we kind of just rejigs that a little bit. There's also the stained glass artwork, which has been deinstalled. This is it in its raw state, and it's being reconfigured as the crown to the new chapel. It's suspended within the space as opposed to being an external. And this is a hot off the press photo of the first segment just installed on Thursday, which is exciting to see it take shape. So it's backlit and front lit, and hopefully when the western sun sets, it will cast incredible colours across the golden ceiling. We haven't mentioned that, but there's a golden ceiling. Another construction photo. So we couldn't finish today without the mention of AI, the industry's friend or foe. Public consumption of ChatGPT or Midjourney or similar programs is in its relative infancy. Are they programs? What are they? Beings? And it's all at once exhilarating and terrifying. Here's a little sample of some images from Midjourney. For the Year 12s, who probably have a better grip on AI than us, don't lose the chance to know who you are as a designer with purpose by outsourcing your thinking. It's very easy to do. We can only speak to what AI is at the moment, but who can say where it will be 12 months from now? AI can be an excellent tool for rapid testing of colours, composition, but don't forget to think for yourself. The all-knowing ether can't do this for us. Trends are fleeting. So let's get more deliberate and establish deep roots in our approach to architecture and understanding who it is that we're designing for. Buildings and spaces are more than the images or videos we see of them. They're layered, have smells, quality of air, ambient sound. They have a life beyond the still, COVID and the lockdowns in particular taught us or required us to experience architecture and most other interactions and facets of life online. We would encourage all the Year 11s and 12s here today to seek out and visit buildings, public spaces, parks, pavilions, and experience them in the flesh at the scale that they were intended. This is our best defence against the whitewash of the algorithm. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. It's very generous of you to spend some of your Sunday with us.